Hey everyone, this is Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Today I want to show you how to put in a water softener. Now the first thing that we need to do is take out the old water system, and this is a Watts OneFlow Plus system. And I was still getting hard water, so I've had it about 5 years. I'm a little disappointed with it. It did okay for a little while, but I'd rather have a water softener. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Put a filter that can take care of all the sediment, pre-filter, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a water softener on after that, or past the pre-filter. So we'll go ahead and remove this. I went ahead and turned on the bypass. I've closed the inlet and the outlet going to this filter. So we'll go ahead and remove it. So I got the filter out of the OneFlow filtering system, the water conditioner. Go. Well, I had to get some fittings and some PEX tubing for the pre-filter. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get the water softener system all set up to go. First, you want to take the lid off of the top of the container. First, you need to verify that the riser tube is no more than 1/4 inch above the mineral tank top edge here. Next, we can install the control head. So you want to lubricate with silicone grease this O-ring on the outside, and then there's an O-ring on the inside. So you go ahead and just lubricate those two before you put the control head onto the mineral tank. And there's no need to put any grease on these outer threads. So the next step is to put the upper basket into the control valve. You'll want to go ahead and line up these tabs with here, these cutouts with the tabs. And then go ahead and twist it clockwise. And then you'll feel it where it's locked in and it won't come out. And we'll go ahead and put the basket into the riser tube. We'll slide that down. And there's no need to put Teflon tape or plumber's tape onto these threads because they will screw right into the head here. And we'll go ahead and turn it clockwise. And then once it is finger tight or just barely seated, you'll want to go ahead and turn it about 1/4 turn more, and that's about it. You don't want to go any farther than 1/4 turn because you may crack this or crack the threads. Next, we'll go ahead and add the yoke to the bypass valve. Now you want to go ahead and put some silicone lubricant on the O-rings of the male side of the bypass valve, and we'll go ahead and make sure these are loose or away enough to where we can put the yoke on. We'll go ahead and slide that on. Make sure it's pushed all the way in. And once that's on, we can go ahead and tighten this up. And make sure you don't over tighten it because you don't want that to crack. Now we're going to be attaching the bypass valve and the yoke to the metering assembly on the control head. So you want to go ahead and put a little bit of silicone grease or silicone lubricant on the O-rings, both sides. And then we'll go ahead and put the female side right here onto it, and then you'll have these two clips. You want to just make sure they're out of the way. And you want to turn them horizontally to attach the two pieces together. I'll go ahead and tighten this up. I'll go ahead and tighten the other side. So once that's tight, you're able to put a few wraps of plumber's tape on these connections here. If you do need plumber's tape, you want to go ahead and go in a clockwise direction. It just depends on your connection, whether you need it or not. If you have a connector with a washer on the end of this, you may or may not need the plumber's tape. Next, we're going to get some of these pinch clamps taken off, and that way we'll get the pre-filter ready to install. So I have this tool here, and it's either one to install one of the crimp pieces, or if you put it on two, you can take them off because it will cut it right in the middle there. Go ahead and cut these off. And it's a good idea to wear eye protection. That way this thing doesn't hit you in the face. I just wanted to show you all. To get these fittings out, to put that pre-filter on, I had to use a rotary tool. And then I'm just prying in between here just to get this PEX off, because it does a really good job of sealing. So I want to reuse these fittings. So what I'm doing is just prying them off, and then like I said, once I got the clamps off, I had to use the rotary tool to get it out all the way. So here I'm just going to measure where I want that pre-filter to go. Now this next part here, I went ahead and cut a 4-inch piece of 1-inch PEX tubing, and then I put the collars on. And then for the pre-filter, I put the bracket on. You can put it on either way, but if you put this part upside down or down, you won't be able to get to those holes very easily. So I went ahead and put this upright. And it doesn't really matter one way or the other. But I put the fittings, the male fittings, on both sides here with some Teflon tape. And what I'm going to do now is just fit it in here. And then I will get this as even as I can. And then once the holes are marked, I can go ahead and drill into this wood into the back there. And then I can take this apart, drill these holes, and then I can mount that bracket. You want to make sure your fitting's clean and your tubing is clean before you put this together. And then what I had bought, these are 10-inch Big Blue Whole House sediment water filters. They're 5 microns. And these are 10-inch by 4.5-inch. It just fits down into the middle here. And you want to make sure you lube up your seals with some silicone grease before you put this on. Once the seals are lubed up, you can go ahead and put your filter in. And it should come with a filter wrench, so you can go ahead and tighten that up. Just go all the way up with it. And just go till it won't tighten anymore. And now we can start working on the connections from the pre-filter to the water softener, the main tank. So to use this cutter for the clamps, you need to put it on 2. There's different variations of this, but it will close all the way, whereas if it's on 1, it closes just to cinch it up how it's supposed to be. And so you don't want to go this way with trying to cut it. You don't want to go that way. You want to cut it in the middle of the cinch. So you do that and then make sure it's pushed all the way up to where that second band is, and then just close it all the way, and it'll snap it cleanly, and then you'll be able to pry it off with a screwdriver the rest of the way, with a flathead screwdriver. So here I am using the rotary tool because I have to get this piece off, and this piece will stay the same. I just wasn't able to put a new clamp because I had to turn this upward to go to the water softener. So I have to take the whole thing off, and then I'll replace this piece, and then I'll put 2 new clamps on it. So this is how I cut into it. I broke through in the middle, and then I just barely started to see brass. I'm not touching the brass, or I didn't hit the brass on both sides, and then I can get in there with the screwdriver, and then I can pry this one out, and that way this will separate. So I've got some of the fittings put in here, the PEX tubing, the 2 clamps. So now I'm ready to go up to the water softener, and then I'll just have 2 elbows up at the top here. I'll have 2 elbows up at the top here, just going down. So this will be the inlet going into the water softener, and that will be the outlet going to the house. Once you have all your connections going to your water softener and it's in bypass, you can go ahead and cinch up all the clamps. So I have all these clamps that I have to cinch up. So that'll be the next step. And then before we turn it on, we just double check that it's in bypass mode, and we'll check for leaks. So before you start cinching up your clamps, you just want to make sure if you have a no-go gauge, just close it all the way. Make sure it fits in there the way it's supposed to. It says close handles or stop point, insert gauge into jaw gap. Gauge must stop at the no-go. If gauge goes beyond this point, recalibrate the tool. So if you can see the little notch here, if it goes beyond that, you have to recalibrate it with this. I think you just unscrew that and tighten it down a little bit, and it'll either pull it in or take it out, one of the two. So you may have to recalibrate it. Once you've made sure that this is calibrated correctly, you go ahead and make sure all your connections are pushed in, or your PEX is pushed into your connectors. And then we'll just tighten these up one at a time. So that's what it should look like once it's all done. And we'll just do that to the rest of them. Now that we've got all our PEX lines cinched up with the clamps, so all the clamps are cinched up and all the water connections are good to go, we can go ahead and turn our water supply back on, but we want to make sure that it's in bypass on the bypass valve. So in this instance, if they're straight across, it's in bypass mode. If they're like this, parallel to each other, they're in service mode. But for right now, we want to keep it in bypass mode, and we'll turn our water back on going to the unit, and we'll check for leaks to make sure there's no leaks. And we'll just do that slowly over 5 to 10 seconds. We'll go ahead and open up the bypass valve, which is right here. So we'll open this up, have the water flow into here, and then it'll go through the system, and then it'll come out this area right in here. So it looks like there's a leak right in here, so I'll have to tighten this connection up more. But what I'll have to do, since it's already connected, I'll have to cut these two bands and then remove this piece and then replace this piece, put 2 new bands on, and then tighten this, of course. But what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and turn the water pressure on all the way and just make sure there's no other leaks besides this leak. So it looks like that is our only leak. So like I said, I'll have to cut these clamps off, replace them with 2 new clamps, and tighten this connection and put new Teflon tape on it before I put it back in there. Once you got your water back on and there's no leaks going through your bypass valve and into the house, you can go ahead and take your brine well out of your brine tank. And it is easier to take the safety float out, so you'll just take this nut off and go ahead and remove the safety float. And now we'll attach this part to the brine tank. So we'll attach the brine well to the brine tank. And you'll see there's 2 holes here, and there's 2 holes right here. And let me know what you guys think. But I saw in multiple listings or multiple videos that they take this cap off, and when you look at the help for this particular model, it says to take the cap off, the bottom cap off, and then when you're done, put the top cap back on, and that'll keep the salt pieces from when you're loading your salt from getting into your well. So let me know what you guys think, because I've seen it where there's a hard plastic bottom, and then like this one's removable, and comments to the manufacturer, they said it's more for shipping. So they said go ahead and remove the bottom one, even though it has the slots in the bottom of the well. Once you've got everything out of the brine well, you can go ahead and use the overflow elbow here. And if it has a hard washer and a soft washer, you'll put those on the outside of the tank. And we'll just line up the bottom hole with the bottom hole here, and then the nut will go to the inside of the bottom hole well on the other side. After you've got the overflow elbow secure, we'll go ahead and put the safety float back into it. I just want to make sure I didn't get it too tight to where the cap will still fit on the top of the brine well. So we'll go ahead and remove the nut. And we'll turn it the opposite direction right here. And we'll go ahead and put it in the brine well. So that's how it should look once it's all secure. Now we can attach the brine line to the safety float. But before you begin, you want to make sure that you have these collars inside of each one, or each side. And if you have to trim it down, just remember to put the collar into the cut piece so that you have a collar on each side. And this is what those look like. For this next step, we're going to put the brine line into the safety float, and it comes with a nut here. So we'll go ahead and screw that on a little bit. We'll put the brine line into the outside hole here, and we'll push it in. We'll go ahead and tighten the nut. And you shouldn't be able to pull out the brine line once this nut is tight. So that's how it looks once the brine line is attached with the nut to the safety float. Don't forget to put your cap on your brine well, and we'll go ahead and attach the brine line to the control head. Now when you got your brine line ready to attach, you want to go ahead and use the ferrule. Put the brass nut on first and just have the threads going outward, and then put the ferrule on with the tapered end towards the control head. Now I trimmed mine down about 1 foot just to make it exactly the length that I wanted it to be. Now these fittings are brass on brass. You don't have to worry about how tight to get this. You can tighten it as much as you need, just so that the tubing won't pull out of the connection. And then if you had a filter or a screen that they showed to go into here, I would go ahead and remove it or not include that. So just use that in piece and then connect it the way I showed you. Next, we'll attach the drain barb to the control head. Now you don't want to tighten this too much because you'll either crack the housing or the connector. And make sure you wrap the fitting 4 or 5 times with the Teflon tape. Every application is different, but what I'm using is 3/4 inch outside diameter with 1/2 inch inside diameter tubing. I'm using these clamps here, and they just tighten with a flathead screwdriver. And then I've got this other barb, and I'm going into copper tubing, which is 1/2 inch also. So that's this right here, and all I did was use some sandpaper and just clean that up a little bit. And then I have a shark bite fitting, so I will push that on, and then this barb will tighten into here. And then I can go ahead and tighten this on the end of that, and then my drain line will be complete. So I'll go ahead and make sure there's no burrs or anything around this copper tubing, so I can push this on. Pull, make sure it's not going to come off. Now we'll go ahead and program the control head. Yours may be different, so look at your owner's manual to see how to program yours, but we'll go ahead and plug it in. And remember, the water is still in bypass mode. So we'll go ahead and press the up and down buttons for 5 seconds. And that will get us the day interval or day override. Now this sets your regeneration frequency. Now this is only used if the water usage does not initiate it first. If you have iron, you set it no higher than 7 in your water. Otherwise, set it no higher than 14. And so you can see the preset here is 14. Now to get to your next setting, which is the regen time, you push this button on the left here. And it's preset for 2 a.m. So you can change that to whatever time you like. Push that again. Now this is your hardness. This is in grains per gallon. So whatever you got for your water, you want to go ahead and put that in there. And for my setting, it is 12 grains per gallon. So we'll go to the next setting, which is reserve capacity. And for this, you want to take the average number of people in the house and multiply by 75. Now once you program your reserve capacity, we'll go ahead and set the time. You can hold up or down to set the time. If you hold it, the time will go faster. And then you can press the button on the left just to confirm your choice. Now for my initial startup, it said to fill the brine tank about half full. Go ahead and open up the 2 bypass valves. And then start a regen process by pressing and holding the left button down for about 5 to 10 seconds. Now your startup procedure may be different, so consider what it says in your owner's manual. Well, this has been Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Good luck on your next home or automotive project. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment.